Hi everyone, welcome to today's Tech Talk. Today we're going to be unpacking what a vCISO is and how our team at LeftBrain deliver value through our vCISO service. For anyone that doesn't know, a vCISO is a virtual Chief Information Security Officer, sometimes called just CISO, Chief Information Security Officer. Joining our discussion today, we have Charlie, our CEO, and the brains behind our vCISO model, Lucas, who leads our GRC governance, risk and compliance function, and Matt, who is our Information Security Analyst and works closely with clients. So let's start by going over the basics of what a vCISO is. Charlie, could you start by telling us, why are more companies turning to this model in 2025?
Yeah, so a great question. So what we found is that something that's very much shifted in the industry recently is that it used to be that an organization could get by fine with just having IT support, and an IT support, they would cover basic security needs within a business. But what has rapidly shifted and has especially kind of come up over the last year is that it's no longer good enough just to have technical security. What we're finding is that organizations, in order to win contracts, in order to sort of meet their growth ambitions, they need an organizational wide approach to managing information security. And to do that, you need security leadership, and you need people who are not looking at technical aspects. They're looking at actual sort of governance, risk compliance, and how can we fit security into an organization that's appropriate for them at that time. We've seen a huge increase in demand for those services. So that's why we've started our vCISO services.
Great. And Matt, you're often on the ground working with clients. What are the biggest kind of misconceptions around what a vCISO does?
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception is that most people don't actually know what a vCISO is, or that it's even a thing. Small and mid-sized companies usually think that you either have to hire a full-time CISO or just try and figure things out yourself. Yeah, a vCISO model gives you the best of both worlds, with expert security leadership, but without the full-time cost. So yeah, the value of it lies in the fact that you can have someone who can step in and take ownership and build the company a proper security roadmap, but without needing months of onboarding or a massive budget.
Great. And Lucas, what kind of companies do we find are coming to LeftBrain for this service? And what are the most common pain points that they're facing?
Yeah, the companies that come to us typically are ones that, they're smaller. There's usually somebody who's been given either a data protection officer role, or they're the head of IT, and they are sort of being tasked with doing all of this stuff surrounding information security. They're good at what they do, but this isn't what they do. And it's what they're having to do. To go to the second part of your question is because it's their customers or it's government regulations that are then starting to breathe down their necks and saying, you need to be doing this to work with us, or you need to be doing this to be within the law. And so it suddenly becomes their responsibility. And it's not that they, couldn't learn, but they have other things that they need to be doing in their business. And so the people that typically come to us are those looking for that extra assistance so that they can keep doing the things that they want to do. And we can, provide that expert assistance, like Matt said, at a reduced cost.
Sounds good. And, thinking about the LeftBrain model and how we deliver it, what sets LeftBrain apart, Charlie? How is the way that LeftBrain does a vCISO different to others?
Yeah, so I love this question because I think it's quite easy for companies to go out and to just sort of say, well, think of us as your vCISO, think of us as your vCIO. But actually it doesn't really mean anything unless I think you've got two core elements in place. So the first element is having the service led by people who are experienced and qualified in not just sort of technical security, but in governance and risk management, which is why it's been really important for us and for myself to get the chartered status to be able to make sure that the service is actually being run in a way that's sort of assured from the top level possible. And the other one is the way you systematically define, approach, and execute the service itself. A lot of people think that a virtual kind of executive role like vCISO, vCIO, they think, oh, that's just sort of a bit of guidance. It's someone who's been around for a while, they know what they're doing, they're just going to give you some nice advice. But actually that's not the case at all. What it needs a systematic approach to delivering it in a high quality, high and repeatable quality. And that's the most important element. So a lot of our time has been spent building the systems to sort of approach it, to make sure we're working, doing things that are appropriate for the business, and to make sure that we're repeating it on an ongoing basis to the high quality standard.
What's the end result, Charlie, of this vCISO service?
I think the end result, when you at the end of the day, you're boiling all of this down, I think, to one simple thing, right? When you've taken, an old approach is to just react and to be reactive. When you move up the organization right to the middle and you're talking about risk, you're understanding risk, you're communicating well, and you're making business appropriate decisions, the net result, I think, is that everyone gets more sleep. The IT team that are worried about a breach, they get more sleep because they know that decisions have been made up the organization. The people at the top of the organization, they know risk's been taken care of. And ultimately, it's the board of directors. The board of directors are the ones that are responsible for the safe operation of the business. And if they have a brilliant system in place to surface risk, to make decisions about risks, they can also sleep at night knowing that they've done all they can to make those data-driven decisions.
And Lucas, we often talk about how we deliver in an agile way. Can you talk us through what a typical sprint might look like and how we work with clients in focused timeframes?
Yeah, so I'm working with a client right now, and the way that we've structured it is that we sort of have a weekly meeting. We have a plan for what we're wanting to do. This is specifically talking about an ISO 27001 implementation. We've mapped out all of the sort of milestones that you need to hit before you can get ISO certified. And so we have a weekly meeting where we discuss what needs to be done, how far they've gotten through it, if they have any questions, and especially how we can make it most applicable to their business. With ISO specifically, there's a lot of give and take to how you implement information security for the organization. And so it's really important to us that we're not just throwing a template at them and then saying, checking a box. We think it's important that the stuff that we're putting in place, like Charlie's already said, is actually meaningful and important and is not just, some policy that nobody's ever going to read. It's something that is actionable and that will be used to actually secure the business, and that hopefully is doing more than just ticking an ISO box.
Charlie, say someone's considering this vCISO service. Where do you start? Where do you begin?
Yeah, great. So a really important thing about a vCISO service is that at its heart, it's strategic. And it's not about just putting technical tools in. It's about embedding within the fabric of the organization in order to make good decisions. So the first thing we start with, the very first questions we ask is, what's the mission of the organization? If you think about risk, all risk is anything that can stop a business fulfilling its mission. So the first thing we need to do is we need to understand that mission. We need to take that mission, and we need to say, what's the core processes that make that mission possible, and what are all the things that could get in the way of those processes that make that mission possible. And when we sort of start with the mission, it all becomes relevant to the business, and it all becomes embedded within that decision-making framework.
Brilliant. Charlie, you talked earlier about, this isn't a checkbox, tick boxing exercise. It's more of a strategic function. Can you talk about, the wider business value of having a vCISO in place, especially for kind of fast moving tech teams?
Yeah. So the very first thing we actually do when we start our vCISO program is we look to get sort of embedded within the actual governance structure of the organization. So what we can't do is we can't just we're not here to make decisions. We're here to provide data and to give context to business decision makers so they can make appropriate decisions. So to do that, what we need to do is we need to first get a really good understanding of what the governance structure is within an organization. And we need to understand what cyber's role within that governance structure. How can we improve it from where it is? And then by kind of embedding on that very strategic high level, it means that we're able to execute the program, and the program will give a lot more value to the business.
Lucas, have you got an example of a client's GRC posture or audit readiness changing dramatically through our vCISO engagement?
So yeah, we've had quite a few clients that start out with nearly nothing, and it's not because they don't want to, but as I said before, people want to do their business. They don't want to be having to think about this stuff often. But what we when we come in and we give them sort of the framework that we've built, they start to see the value of it. And so the massive change is that when we're giving them like a policy and we're saying, this is why we're giving it to you, this is what's valuable about it, they finally go, oh, right? Like you could just accept any random policy, but when we sort of explain it to them and we say, this is the actual value of it, they can see that and they can take it and actually put it into the business. A good example of this is something even like an AI adoption policy. Most businesses haven't even considered what AI their clients or their employees are using. And as soon as you present them with, hey, have you guys thought about what AI should be acceptably used within the business? They go, oh, no, we haven't. And then, we take them through that governance process of deciding on them, making it a policy, communicating it with their employees. And end of the day, they're more secure for something that they didn't even know that was something that they needed. So,
Great. And same to you, Matt. Have you come across any client stories, or can you think of any examples where, something small, a process or missing control, for example, has ended up having an impact when fixed?
We've had clients who are hesitant to invest in a security program, understandably so, because it's not always easy to quantify the value of it up front. And then, unfortunately, there have been cases where they've gone on to get breached, and which has caused serious operational disruption and financial loss in some cases. That's why we always advise and always aim to be proactive rather than reactive. Spotting and fixing the small gaps early. Like I said earlier, with the security baseline, that helps to fix any large gaps. For example, visibility over who has admin access. So yeah, even if it doesn't seem to be urgent at the time, can make all the difference getting a good security program in place.
Great. And to kind of wrap us up, Charlie, if anyone's listening and wondering whether vCISO is right for them, what signs are there to show that they're ready or that they need it?
Yeah, I think the signs that an organization is ready for a vCISO is on the demands that are starting to be placed on them as a business. So often that comes from the supply chain. Their clients are saying, what's your organization's approach to information security? Not what tools you have, what's your approach? What's your approach to risk management? So all those sort of questions that are like, really getting underneath the basic technical functions, and they're really starting to sort of pierce into the heart of the strategic approach of the actual business and the business governance and the risk decisions. That's all signs saying, hey, we need to actually move up the kind of chain. We need to move away from thinking of security as a technical response and a technical tool, and we need to start thinking about what security as a business driver, what security as like a kind of function and a heart that's beating within it from the very sort of inside and the center of the business. And when you then start to shift that mindset and you start to sort of shift left all the way sort of to the center of the business, what happens downstream is you start to get the fruit of that. And the fruit of that, sort of, a good posture, good response to incidents, a clear scorecard of when people are looking externally. That's what businesses want to see. That's what clients want to see. Supply chains want to see. It's all an effect, and you've got to move upstream if you really want to cause that effect.
Brilliant. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks to you all for joining us today. I think we've all got a clearer idea of what a vCISO does. So yeah, thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.